Hello, hello, Zuki here. Alright, I'm on my alt and about to start the Endwalker main scenario quest. Just sitting on the roof of the FC house at the moment. Real easy to get up here. At least in lavender beds. Alright, so time to head to Mordona. Of course, I've gone through the main scenario before on my main, and it's been several months. Hopefully I'll catch some things that I missed. Alright, the next ship to sail. Alphino is feeling the need to take stock. Do you have some time to talk? Well, yeah, I'm here, aren't I? Alphino says, I would like to gather everyone in Dawn's respite and together assess the situation in which we find ourselves. Let us take stock of facts, shall we? The crisis at hand began with the sudden appearance of ominous towers in a multitude of locations throughout the world. We have since learned that said structures were brought into being by an organization known as the Telophori. The Telophori's stated purpose is to recreate the final days of Aeon's past, an apocalyptic event that would result in the destruction of all we hold dear. Already have these towers of theirs been the cause of untold suffering. LSA says countless innocents kidnapped and imprisoned, their faith perverted for primal summonings. And unless we find a way to deal with the corruptive aura surrounding the spires, we can't even get close enough to rescue anyone. Those shielded with the blessing of light seem to be able to resist being tempered, at least. But after what happened to Arnveld and Fordola, we need to be very, very careful about how we proceed. Thancred says, yet, while these threats close to home are of paramount concern, we mustn't lose sight of the situation in Garlemald. As you know, the Telophori are under the leadership of Fandaniel and one other delightful fellow, Xenos, the crown prince and our dear friend. Hold on a second. There we go. Alright, to date, he's reclaimed his old body, murdered Emperor Varys, and plunged Garlemald into an even deeper state of chaos. The capital has probably seen the worst of it. For a good while, there saw the bloodiest fighting in the War of Succession. But that has since changed in troubling ways. Orianji says, during our reconnaissance, the air was not once rent by the barking of cannons or the cries of discord. 'Twas an eerie fog of silence which did blanket that ruined city. The inhabitants appeared to have been tempered, and with nary a word spoken did they labor to transform the palace into a soaring edifice born of nightmares. Gishtela says, if they were indeed made thralls, it seems safe to assume that these events too were orchestrated by the Telophoroi. An army of primals is awful enough, but in light of recent developments, I fear it is only the prelude to an even greater catastrophe. We need to devise a means to counter this threat, and quickly, before our allies are overwhelmed. Grahatia says, we will find a way in Charlayan, I'm sure of it. Master Forshanov's comments regarding the final days were curious, to say the least. The Forum knows more than it's letting on. Tataru says, sorry to interrupt. We've just received word from Mistress Kryl. She says the arrangements for your visit have been finalized. Tataru continues, you're to head to Limsa Laminza and board the next ship bound for Charlayan. And on arrival, present yourselves as associates of the students of Baldacian, come to assist with the Order's restoration. Stinian says the arrangements may be settled, but what of your thoughts? They must race at the prospect of returning home after so long. Hey, Rory, and yeah, she would, wouldn't she? Alphino says, I am eager to see it, of course. Of course, we should be off at once. Tataru says, then I'll accompany you to the docks. You need at least one person there to wave and cry and wish you a safe journey. Fierce little tater, too. I still think she's a primal. Alright, so, to Limsa. I've had all my shots, right? They are, hold on. Kupo trousers. They're from the Kupo of Fortune chest from Firmament. Nice, aren't they? Oh, by all means. By all means. Oh, gang's all here. Tataru says everyone's here, which is good because I've already paid for your passage and the fee is non-refundable. The ship for Charlayan should be pulling into port soon, so please follow me and have all your luggage close at hand. Yes, I have it all in my assy and ass pocket. I think the chests themselves might actually be relatively cheap. pouch like a kangaroo. Yeah? Look for the price for the top that comes from that, and look for the price for the legs themselves. And yeah. Yeah, that's why I said look for the price for the box, not for the individual pieces. But you can turn the top around. There's a hat and shoes that go with it as well. I know, but I'm talking about turning it around and putting it on the market board. Nice. Alright, what do I say? I'll bring them back safe and sound, I promise, or no sense worrying about things we're powerless to change. I'll bring them back safe and sound. I see. Thanks, Phil. I always want to wash her nose, wash her face. Sound plan that, Phil. I love that it's them itself we're hearing. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Yeah, it might be on my end. Hold on. Thank you for saying something. Can you hear it now? Hold on. How about now? Hmm. Awesome. Okay, thanks for saying something. Yep, that's all it's doing right at the moment. Alright, so what am I gonna say? Why now, Heidelin? Or I can trust your words no longer. I'm gonna say why now.
After your sojourn in the First, I believe you have your answer. You have gained an understanding of what I truly am, what Heidelin has always been, a primal.
Cool.
Zodiac was created to forestall the apocalypse which threatened the ancient world, and I was brought forth to bind him. Yet 7 times now, those who would orchestrate a return to that bygone era have rejoined a shard to the god I had sundered. The greater his strength grows, the swifter does mine own diminish. The power to draw your mind into the rift betwixt is no longer mine to wield. Yet though it taxes me sorely, I dare not leave these words unsaid. Even bereft of my guidance, you and your companions have accepted the burden of this star's troubled past. A conjunction has begun to form, an intertwining of your time and mine. Wheels shudder and turn. Conflict looms, monumental, which will decide the fate of this world and all life upon it. When you truly understand what is at stake, and your journey has prepared you to surmount the insurmountable, then shall I honor the promise made in another time, another age.
Cast your peepers to the fore, folks. Sharlian's just over yonder.
I will not keep you further. Your traveler's heart must yearn to behold this unfamiliar land. We shall meet again, and soon.
Okay, and yeah, it looks like one of my settings got reset in an update, so...
Oh, what a fine morning. Oh, still a bit stiff though.
And a good morning to you too. Taking a look at the island already?
Then let's go. Let's go! Might still be room in the prow if we're lucky.
Ah, the sleepers have arisen. There she is. Good old Charlian.
Oh, I see it.
Gorgeous.
Home. Home at last. Well, maybe not in Father's eyes. But we'll manage on our own, if we must.
You do know you're not alone in this, don't you?
Indeed, 'tis as Sir Estinian saith. Forget not the comrades who boarded this ship at your side, I prithee.
Thank you, my friends. We are ever grateful for your steadfast support.
Upon arrival, we will be disembarking into the heart of Charlian proper. There is no greater concentration of wisdom in all the world. I am confident that somewhere within that center of knowledge and learning, we will find the answers we seek.
Moon. And so it begins.
Charlian, the solitary island nation of the northern seas. Where under the watchful gaze of Thaliak, patron deity of scholars, academics hoard all manner of knowledge and secrets. Once, they deigned to accept foreign students into a distant colony maintained in the Dravanian hinterlands. How swiftly they abandoned it once the first Garlean boot set hostile foot on Alamegan soil. So averse to the prosecution of war, these men of wisdom, your would-be allies.
I thought they'd never let us off the ship. What's next then? Entry applications?
Hopefully they find no cause to deny us.
Hasn't Charlian all but severed relations with foreign powers? Those of us without direct ties, myself included, may be refused outright.
'Tis true that, as a nation, Charlian only forms trade agreements with a select few neutral countries. But from a practical standpoint, an island cannot afford to be overly strict with its borders, especially not if that island's people are wholly devoted to the accumulation of knowledge. If one submits the proper paperwork, with satisfactory evidence of identity and intent, then foreigners may be granted entry.
May.
Quite. So let us be absolutely clear on these points before we proceed. The immigration officer will ask for your affiliation and your purpose of visit. Considering Sharlayan's views on intervention, I strongly suggest we avoid any mention of the Scions. Kral has laid the groundwork for us to act as associates of the Students of Baldessian, and our ostensible reason for being here is to aid in their order's restoration. Grahatir, it might expedite our progress should an actual student be seen at the head of our little group. Would you mind leading the way?
Of course. The immigration officers were this way, as I recall. Shall we? Greetings. We've just arrived and are eager to make our way into the city. Would you be so kind as to process our entry applications?
Certainly. I see by your mark you are an Archon.
I am. Grahatir of the Students of Baldessian at your service. I was assigned to an Eorzean survey team, but have returned to assist with the reformation of my order. My associates here will provide additional support.
Very good. I have paperwork detailing your group and its scheduled arrival for today. And it seems some few of your companions are also Archons. If you'll step forward, we can process those applications first.
Ishtola rule.
See how it glows? That list is etherically linked with the citizen registry kept in the main repository.
I've confirmed your status as Archons and amended your travel records accordingly. Welcome home.
I do like her earring.
Now, who do we have here?
Alphino Leveilleur.
And Alize Leveilleur.
Your applications have also been approved. Having said that, the streets are abuzz with talk of how House Leveilleur's lord disowned his young progeny. And while such personal circumstances constitute no reason to deny you entry, I urge you to avoid exacerbating your present situation. Times are quite troubled enough already.
We shall keep that in mind.
These last two are not Sharlayan natives, but you will find their credentials are in order. An application was made in advance.
You're not wrong there, Rory.
Name and occupation?
I'm gonna call myself an artisan.
Indeed. Your profile describes you as an adventurer, but one also trained in the rather more constructive pursuits of procurement and production. You may enter. And you, sir?
Estinian Valino, formerly of the Order of the Knights Dragoon in Ishgard.
Formally, at least. And what, pray tell, is your profession now?
If you'll allow me... My associate is a mercenary, hired for his strength at arms. Surely you are aware of the dangers we often face on our forays into the wilderness.
Mistress Baldessian, if you insist on sponsoring his entry, then so be it. But while I appreciate that desperate times call for desperate measures, I find your choice of company concerning. Be advised that even a single misstep may have severe repercussions for your organization.
Karen, go back to your HOA.
I have every confidence in my chosen company, dear and trusted comrades that they are. But I thank you for your concern.
Croyle! It is good to see you.
Likewise. Long voyage notwithstanding, you all seem none the worse for wear. There is much to discuss, but this is hardly the place. Let's be on our way, shall we? Oh! Welcome, friends, to Sharlayan.
As your mercenary, I should hope my welcome includes a generous salary.
Well, I had to say something, Sir Taciturn.
Rory's looming. Alright, let's talk to Kryl. Kryl says, I'm glad I spotted your ship coming into port. The officers are born bureaucrats and sticklers for detail. In any case, you may relax and take a moment to get your land legs back. Alright, so Kryl sweeps the sands in with a speculative look. That was priceless, Rory. Alright, Kryl says, I had thought to launch directly into an explanation of what I've learned and how we might proceed. But this is their first time in Sharlayan, and for the rest of you, a homecoming that is long overdue. You must have places you wish to visit and people you're dying to see. Therefore, I propose we postpone our agenda so that you all may have sufficient time to recover from your journey and get your bearings in the city. Once you're settled in, we can reconvene at the Baldassian Annex. How does that sound? Alphino says, 'Tis a fine suggestion. We may not be welcome at the Levior estate as such, but I should like to know about the neighborhood all the same. Ystella says, I am equally untethered, as it were. There's no particular place that my kin call home. Still, I would not pass up the opportunity to reacquaint myself with the city. Thancred says, likewise, a quick tour of our old haunts might yet even yield some useful gossip. Thancred says, the annex was west of the Aetherite Plaza, wasn't it? I shall join you there anon. Prowl says, yes, we'll see you there. Oriange says, I too have places I would be remiss to not visit forthwith, by thy leave. Prowl says, what of you, Estinian? My services as a guide are yours for the asking. Estinian says, that won't be necessary. Until we reconvene, I prefer to wander as the wind takes me. Prowl says, but, I could... Oh. Prowl says, well, Raha, would you like to join us then? You've been gone for quite a while, and this would be the perfect way to refresh those dusty old memories of yours. Graha says, oh, of course, if you'll have me. Come, Sherlayan awaits. Graha says, after you, my friend. I am more than content to follow your lead. Alright, so he's now accompanying me. Keep him at my side in order to proceed with quest objectives. And in the event he's Aethernet, he'll catch up as long as you remain in the same area. You can leave him, however, by entering a different area. You also speak to him and select the option to part ways. Blah, 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 blah. Prowl says, all set, then let us be on our way. Our first stop, amusingly enough, will be the last stand. It's a cafe on the west side of the harbor. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's head over here. And let's pull them both in here. Now I'll talk to him. Trial. This place is called the Peristyle, and it is the first stop for cargo unloaded at the docks. You'll find the usual necessities for daily living and other imports vital to running an island nation, but also supplies that further Sherlayan's pursuit of knowledge, namely large quantities of books, specimens, and samples. Sorting these stacks certainly keeps the attendants busy. With all the unusual wares coming and going at all hours, I expect the assistance of an intrepid adventurer would be highly appreciated. I see no reason why you couldn't undertake any tasks which pique your interest. You've been cleared by the immigration officials after all. I look forward to the day your name is celebrated in Sherlayan the same way it is in Eorzea. Oh, I see Rory over there, copying my look. Alright. Well, next stop. Well, before we go too far, time to attune. And then to the shiny circle over here. Discuss the statue in the harbor. Now that is a sight one could hardly forget, the great statue of Thaliak. As a student of Baldacian, I was usually quartered on the Isle of Val, but I would gaze upon the scholar's wise features every time I returned by ship to the city. And Kryl, path leading out towards the sea, is known as Staley Stone, so named for the statue of the scholar which stands at its end. As you know, the Charlayan people prize the accumulation of wisdom above all else. Thus, when Thaliak was chosen as our patron deity, it was more a matter of pragmatism than belief, an alignment of principles, as it were. We may have honored him with a rather impressive sculpture, yes, but our faith is not so restrictive as that of, say, the Asgardians. Individual Charlayans can and do worship the divinities of their choosing. Okay, shiny circle over here. I see a Rory. Alright, let's talk to Krile. And here we are, the last stand. I may have mentioned this before, but although our research into nutrition and food preparation is quite extensive, the average Charlayan tends to regard seasoning and flavor with a certain indifference. Sounds like a plan, right? Alright, Krile says, how can I put this? The food is, bland. As encapsulated by our infamous Archon loaf, the prevailing sentiment towards cuisine is dietary value first, taste a distant second. There was one pupil at the studium, however, who could stomach the school's insipid meals no longer, so he quit his lessons and poured all of his savings into building a proper eatery. And so the last stand came to be. It is, as the name implies, the sole dedicated outpost of fine dining in Charlayan, the one and only bastion of the culinary arts in an isle of otherwise mediocre fare. I seem to recall their burger being hailed as one of the more impressive items on the menu. Not that I ever had the pleasure of eating one myself. And Krile goes, because you were a typical Charlayan when it came to cheap and convenient, Raha. But surely Tataru has taught you how to appreciate a well-prepared dish. We should all stop in when time permits and sample the cafe's delights. Shall we press on? The stairs to the side of the cafe there will take us up to the Aetheryte Plaza. Alright, well, here's the stairs. Let's attune. Looking good over there, Rory. I see you got the mambo. Krile says, an unusual shape, isn't it? I assure you, however, that it's perfectly functional aetherite. Remember to attune yourself before we move on. Already did it. Now, being the diligent tour guide that I am, I should make mention of the Confluence, a research facility located on this very plaza. Its much vaunted discoveries are the reason Charlayan stands at the forefront of teleportation technology. In deciphering the underlying principles of elegant aetherites, it allowed us to understand and reconstruct what was essentially a lost art. And off we go to our next destination. Our path leads northeast to the Agora, Charlayan's largest marketplace. It is quite the impressive aetherite. Very stylistic. Quite pretty. Alright. So to the next stop. Oh, there's a spot to stop. Discuss the book stalls. Krile says, these little open-air book stalls are so uniquely Charlayan. I'd always thought them a common sight, yet until I visited other nations. And Graha says, do you mind if I browse the shelves for a moment? There might be some hidden gems I've yet to read. Only a moment. Corral says, how optimistic. Feel free to browse all you like, but we won't wait around for you. Raha says, perhaps I'll return here later then. Alright, on to the shiny spot. And Corral says, welcome to the Agora, where you can find wares made in Charlayan, as well as a wide selection of imported goods. They also used to sell questionable prototypes from the various research institutes, but I think that practice has thankfully died out, for the most part. Otherwise, I can think of no better place to stock up for your next big adventure. Am I overselling it? On a more serious note, the next stop on our tour is one which has particular relevance to our ultimate purpose here. We must head back to the Aetheryte Plaza, follow the path north, then climb the stairs up to that imposing building at the very top. Alright, so we're going up the stairs, huh? Well, let's head back over. Up we go. This is so pretty. Research must needs be conducted efficiently. I surround myself with a sweet scent of flowers to calm myself down. Helps me keep an open mind, you see. Okay. Discuss the water features. Says these little decorative features are typical of Charlayan architecture. Aside from the research wing, our headquarters on the Isle of Val were rather simple and rustic by comparison. And Kryle says this is the Nympharium, an area dedicated to the blessings of water. For Charlayans, water represents more than the life-sustaining liquid. It is a reminder of the great flood which precipitated the birth of our nation, as well as a symbol of the knowledge which flows from Thaliak's divine Ur. This is the reason you see an abundance of fountains throughout the city, and a propensity for utilizing water as a decorative feature in our architecture. Pretty. Alright, let's head on up. And there's the shiny spot in front of the big building. Ooh. Alright, we'll go tune that shard in a minute. Let's talk to Kryle. Kryle says, this grand structure before you is the Rostra. The name refers to the original public platform erected here, upon which a forum of elected representatives would deliver orations and debate policy. Although the stage has since evolved into council chambers, the nature of the forum and the duties of its members remain largely unchanged. Am I boring you, Raha? You seem awfully distracted. Rahatia says, my apologies. From here, one can see the entire city spread out below. The vista put me in mind of my arrival in the first. Those who had gathered at the Crystal Tower asked me how they might go about building a new home. Naturally, my answers were all inspired by my knowledge of the finest settlement I could think of, the great city of Charlayan. And bit by bit, those few buildings grew into a town, a community, the Crystarium. I can almost see its echo. Kryle says, I see. Feel free to come up here whenever you wish. I don't think the counselors will object to you simply enjoying the view. Such memories should be treasured. For now, however, our tour must go on. Our spectacle of sightseeing concludes with the fittingly named Journey's End. Walk down the stairs to the east and continue straight ahead. First, we're going to attune to this. Now we can go east. Ral says, we've arrived at Journey's End. History tells us that this was where those who put ashore with Archon Crump built their first homes. I cannot say that name. In the present day, it serves as a residential district for the most important officials and the oldest Charlayan families. You'll see that one mansion is clearly larger than its neighbors. That estate belongs to our friends from House Levior. All things considered, we should probably keep our distance for the time being. And with that, we bring our little Charlayan tour to a close. I hope it has proven to be an entertaining and enlightening experience. Now, shall we head directly to the Baldacian Annex? You remember the way, don't you, Raha? Rahatia says, let me think. We head down towards the harbor, cross the bridge to our right, then follow the path below the Aetheryte Plaza. Kral says, correct, after you. Oh no, Tig! Alright, so before we go over there, I'm going to attune to this Aetheryte. And then we're going to head back. Oh no! Alright, we're taking a little bit of a shortcut here. Kral says, as the joyous look on Raha's face has undoubtedly informed you, this is the Baldacian Annex. If you continue up the hill, you'll arrive at the doorstep of Phenomenon, but I think we've explored enough for one day. You can take it. We can take you there another time. Alright, inside with you then. Kral says, I'm back, and I've brought Lithengel and Raha with me. Ah, you're right about the ship then. Hello, Graha. It's nice to see you again. And it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I've heard many tales of your exploits. Ojika Tessanjika. It's been an age. Kral says, allow me to introduce the administrative officer for the students of Baldacian. He oversees the day-to-day business of the Annex. The champion of Eorzea has featured prominently in Kral and Graha's reports, so to me, this is akin to meeting a fabled hero come to life. It is an honor to make your acquaintance. This place is like a second home for the students. The Isle of Val served as our main headquarters, of course, but we often had occasion to visit Charlayan. Whether to make use of the city's research facilities, attend conferences, or procure supplies from distant shores. And the annex here was built to provide lodgings for our members while we engaged in such activities, Kyle says. Ojinka says, ever since our former headquarters, along with the isle itself, vanished, the annex has served as our base of operations. And yet it feels so empty. With so many lost to us, our organization is a shell of its former self. Kral says, the day will come when we'll see the students rise again. But first, we must ensure that the Telophori fall. Through that door on the left, there is the main hall where we can discuss our options moving forward. Once everyone arrives, that is. You probably have time to rest before our discussion begin in earnest. I've had private quarters prepared for you in the Andron, so please, feel free to make yourselves at home. Graha says, the nap room's perfect for an afternoon doze. Graha says, I didn't mean to give you the wrong impression. The chambers are quite well appointed. Far more so than some cheap roadside inn, you may be assured. 'Twas simply that we were often so busy with research or exhausted from journeys abroad that we would slip into the Andron just to steal a few winks. And thus they became known amongst the students as nap rooms, even if such naps might last well into the following morning. Say the word and I'll be happy to show you to your chamber, Ojinka says. Kral says, hopefully the others won't be too long in coming. I'll wait for you in the main hall. Alright, to the main hall. Quite the room. Look around at it. Alright, let's talk to Kral. Kral says, feeling refreshed and alert, our colleagues should be wandering in soon, so I suggest we stay here and wait for them to join us.
Pray forgive me. I was delayed.
It's fine, Urianger. We're all here now.
Let's get down to business then, shall we? Come what may, we must prevent the Telophoroi's plans from coming to fruition. At present, I see two paths for gathering the information which may aid us in achieving that goal. The first involves an investigation into the change which has come over Charlayan, not to mention the recent inscrutable behavior of the Forum. As most of you know, the 99 members of the Forum are elected from the general populace. This alone guarantees a plethora of opinion with regards to foreign policy. The bibliotheques, for example, are a group of conservatives which would have Sharlayan focus on recording history, while remaining entirely uninvolved in the making of it. And at the other extreme, we have advocates for proactive diplomacy and direct intervention. My grandfather Galef was one such member, as was Archon Louisois. Yet despite our diverse factions and philosophies, the recent vote to deny Eorzea's request for assistance was unanimous. Even more concerning was the fact that many cited other, more pressing duties as justification for their recalcitrance.
Fortuno's refusal in Gridania had those same undertones. 'Twas as if, having stared unblinking into the face of impending doom, he had simply turned away to pursue something more important. But what could that possibly be?
A mystery indeed, and one which I ask for your help to solve. Our future may depend on it. As for our second potential path, it concerns a request made directly to the students of Baldessian. Our organization was founded primarily to study strange and unexplained phenomena the world over. Mysterious relics and ruins, arcane disturbances, and so forth. Compared to our more isolationist Sharlayan colleagues, we have strong connections overseas, namely with scholars and academics who share our passion for the unknown. The request in question comes from one such acquaintance, Nidana, an alchemist residing in distant Thavnair. Her missive describes the sudden appearance of a tower, and the subsequent summoning of what I can only assume is a lunar primal. In response to this threat, the satrap of Radzat-Han, the individual who governs the city-state, has instructed the alchemists to find a means to deal with the spire.
The artisans of that land are heirs to an ancient tradition, one rather unlike that of their Uldan counterparts. 'Tis possible, nay, probable, that they have gleaned truths unattainable by Eorzea or her Far Eastern allies.
They do, in fact, appear to have a strategy in mind, though it will require further research. To that end, they have requested an introduction to a capable warrior shielded by the blessing of light.
Assuming we divide our forces to pursue both of Krar's lines of inquiry, then having you join the group heading to Thavnair would seem the obvious choice. But the investigation in Sharlayan is of vital importance as well. Equal, I think, to the Thavnairian one, given that the fate of the world may hinge on the results of both.
Yes, it is quite the quandary. Though it is a great imposition and an altogether too common one, our efforts would be more likely to succeed were you to lead the charge on both fronts. You are indeed our champion. As to which task to tackle first, we will defer to your decision. Let us next decide how everyone else might best be assigned. As for myself, I shall continue what I've begun in Sharlayan. I should also like to steal the services of an Archon or two.
And thereby gain access to a greater range of reading material. I will help with that.
Allow me to offer my assistance. I have some small amount of experience in the field of research.
Alize and I would also like to help, if you would have us.
Anything to understand even a fraction of what our father and the Forum might be thinking.
Of course! The more the merrier.
Right. The rest of us will make the journey to Thavnair.
Alright, catch you later, Rory.
Thoughts? Objections?
I passed through Thavnir on my way to infiltrate the Empire, and though I'm not qualified to give a guided tour, I did gain a sense of where things lie.
I'll be happy to have you along then. So for this group, it will be you, me, and Urianger.
Give me a moment afterwards, and I'll supply you with all the details of Nadana's request. Consider this hall our rendezvous point once our respective tasks are complete. May our investigations prove fruitful.
Got our work cut out for us. Alright, Kyle is intent on uncovering the reason behind the Forum's inexplicable behavior. Kyle says an unsettling change has come over Charlene. But together we will divine the underlying cause of the Forum's callousness. As I mentioned before, however, questioning the counselors directly is a fruitless endeavor. They seem to have already come to a consensus as to what and how little they're willing to divulge. Which is why I began scouring Charlene's archive and historical records for any hint of a connection to the final days. Suffice it to say that progress has been slow, and there are only so many dusty pages one can skim in a day. But now that I have this band of willing reinforcements, the search should proceed all the swifter. Let us reconvene outside Noman, shall we? Exit the annex to the right and you'll find the archives on the western edge of the woods. And we'll talk to Thancred too. Thancred is eager to set forth for Thavnir. Thancred says, I have Kryle's instructions in hand. If you're ready to set out, then so are we. Justinian says, having been to Thavnir before, I can travel by Aetheryte, but what of the rest of you? Another sea voyage would waste time we do not have. Thancred says, Kryle was of the same mind and has already secured the aid of the good folk of the Confluence. We'll take ourselves there. Urianger says, the Confluence, thou sayest. Thancred says, I'm afraid so, my friend. Urianger says, thou wilt recall the hunt for Ice Heart, unto whose sanctuary we delivered thee owing to the knowledge of our comrade Monbrita. Monbrita was an authority in aetherology, a study she did embark upon in pursuit of her parents' example. Both are authorities in their own right, and both are researchers at the Confluence. Thancred says, haven't you gone to see them yet? Urianger says, I attempted to do so earlier, but to my shame, my courage failed me at the last. As it hath the many times I thought to reach out to them after sending that fateful letter. Neither time nor introspection have revealed unto me the words I should speak, and thus I've kept my silence. Justinian says, whether you come with us or no is your choice and yours alone. Justinian says, if it's too difficult, we'll manage. Urianger says, thou art kind to say so, but I have no intention of forsaking our cause. I shall go to the Confluence, and I shall face that which hath long been overdue. Tankard says, if it's settled, then let us be off. When we arrive, we should look for a researcher named Kitty. Alright. Let's head outside. Attune to that aetherite. And go to the library. Headed for that big building over there. And talking to Kryl. My directions were easy enough to follow, I hope. In any case, you stand now before the doors of Nomen, Sharlayan's grandest collection of books and tomes. This building is actually only an entrance, and one of many at that, for the archives extend deep beneath the surface like the roots of a tree. The vast halls of the Great Google Library pale in comparison to this endless maze of subterranean chambers. Any citizen of Sharlayan is free to enter and pursue its shelves. Well, most of its shelves. Only Archons are afforded access to certain restricted vaults. I've dispatched Justala and Raha to investigate those. Meanwhile, Alisay and Alphino will help me continue my research through the stacks open to the general public. Your status presents more of a problem. As a non-citizen, you are only permitted to browse the first floor, here at the entrance. Even so, there should be a number of books which will touch upon Sharlayan history or foreign policy. Your task will be to find and study the relevant publications. I promise you, a working knowledge of those subjects will make it easier to spot the sort of clues we're looking for. Let us be about it, shall we? I've told the others to meet me at the stone benches over there once we've found some promising tomes. Happy reading. Now, this would make a nice house. Alright, let's go check out the books. Long, long ago, on an island in the northern sea, there lived a Rogadan man by the name of Nankrumpf. He was a student of astrology and divined that a flood of terrifying proportions would soon sweep over the lands of Eorzea. So it was that he built a gigantic ship, assembled a crew, and set sail for the imperiled realm. The flood arrived as foretold, and to their horror, the strangely churning waters drove the people towards the ocean. It was there, however, that the crew hauled themselves aboard his ark, but the danger was not past. A towering wave approached, threatening to smash the vessel to pieces. With only moments to spare, Nankrumpf wove a mighty spell of teleportation and shifted the entire ship to safety atop Abelathia's spine. Refugees from the surrounding regions huddled there alongside them, but it was not long before disputes over the dwindling supply of food led to violence and bloodshed. Saddened by the sight, he gathered to him his crew and his grateful passengers and abandoned the ark to those reddened peaks. They journeyed to the coast where they built a new ship, intent upon returning to the northern seas. They landed on the beach of an island and settled upon that very spot. That settlement prospered and grew, and in time became the city of Sharlayan, and we live in to this day. Okay. Roads of Old, the colony. Many years ago, on the banks of Thaliac, the Dravanian hinterlands, a Charlayan colony once thrived. This settlement was originally established as a mere outpost to study the ethereal sea in the year 1311 of the 6th Astral Era. Scholars dispatched to Eorzea found the facilities wanting, and their demands encouraged a gradual expansion in structures and services. As rumors spread of a growing community of academics, the area was further inundated with Eorzean students hoping to share in the renowned wisdom of the Charlayans. 50 years later, the Forum passed a motion to recognize that what had become a flourishing town is the official Charlayan colony. Eorzean residents took to calling this colony itself Charlayan, which led to no small amount of confusion when discussion turned to the subject of the motherland. In response, some Charlayan inhabitants, if pressed for a name, would simply refer to it as Emporium. Following the Exodus, however, goblins and treasure hunters claimed for themselves a corner of the abandoned colony and gave it yet another name, Idleshire. Following chapters go on to introduce the most prominent features of Idleshire. This book does not appear to contain additional information on the Forum or cover the history of the Charlayan motherland in greater detail. Okay. Blue-covered book. Introduction to the Heavens. Have you ever gazed at the skies above and contemplated the mysteries contained therein? I speak not of shifting cloud patterns, but the vastness beyond, of the sun and twinkling tapestry of the night. Some think the dome above us is an infinite space, or a finite space. Yet, amongst the leading thinkers of our age, one scholar's depiction of a boundless sea of stars has firmly taken root. Alas, this heavenly sea remains an unreachable, unknowable destination. There are few indeed who can explain in satisfactory detail why our own star is believed to revolve around the sun. It was the technologists of Alleg who came closest to understanding the laws which govern that starry abyss. It was they who launched Alamud and sought to expand beyond our earthbound existence. Having read of their ancient ambitions, I wonder, has your interest in this field of study waxed or waned? What if I were to tell you that the eternal constellations were arranged differently in the distant past, that their positions continue to shift almost imperceptibly, but measurably as we journey into the future? Would it shock you to learn that the stars drift further and further apart and may indeed do so forever? Are you eager to learn more? Book is on the wrong subject. Search for works containing details on the Forum or mentioning the history of Charlayan. Well-worn manual. Forever 20 Summers. My beloved seekers of knowledge, have you ever put learning before your health and neglected to feed and rest your body as you should? I too once engaged in such foolish practices, but one night, engrossed in philosophical study, I had an epiphany. For all of the world's mysteries that drive us to reckless abandon, we have so very few years of life in which to achieve our goals. Thus do I share with you this mantra: I am forever 20 summers young. The number itself is unimportant. You could be 19 or 23 or 40. Whatever age you are, when you discover this manual, let it be that the age you aspire to remain. Through mindful, healthful living, will you extend the time available to spend upon your chosen subject? Another day, another moon, another summer to grasp the greater truths you pursue. In the pages that follow, we will explore the secrets of maintaining one's physical condition from a biological, ethereological, and arcane viewpoint. Wrong subject. Here's another book. Stewards of Wisdom. That sounds promising. During the chaos of the Sixth Umbral Calamity, Archon Navgrunt, founder of Sharlayan, bore witness to the madness and savagery of men brought to the brink of despair. Upon raising a settlement on an island in the northern empty, he instructed his people thus: renounce the ways of war and pursue enlightenment through knowledge and reason. The Sharlayans took to heart the words of their savior and thenceforth served as stewards of wisdom. Upon a foundation of accumulated learning, they built a homeland unlike any other, a nation born from strength of minds rather than strength of arms. With knowledge of economics came shrewd trading. With knowledge of agriculture came bountiful crops. Engineering brought wells and sewers, ending squabbles over water. Wealth of expertise could be bartered for wealth in coin, and the more their wisdom spread throughout the world, the more mankind as a whole would thrive. And so it was that no matter the trials and tribulations of the age, the citizens of Sharlayan would live by their founders' teachings. For the sake of a better tomorrow, for the sake of a brighter star, they would eschew the tools of war and with knowledge deliver the world. Okay. Huh. I'm missing a book. How have I missed one? I've been to all of them. Wow, all the way down. How am I missing a book? Alright, let's start working our way back around. Voice of a growing city. Ah, maybe this was it. In the years which followed the founding of Sharlayan, civic policy and other matters of import were decided by the Excelsia, public forum which every citizen was eligible to speak. As the city's population grew, however, the format became increasingly impractical. Larger number of participants gave rise to ever longer debates, resulting in significant delays of vital resolutions. Various measures were introduced in an attempt to curtail protracted discussions. But in the year 201 of the Sixth Astral Era, it was ultimately decreed that Sharlayan would transition to a new form of governance. The nation would now be led by a body of 99 members, citizens chosen from amongst their peers by means of a nationwide vote. Thus was the forum as we know it today conceived and created. Alright. Now to the designated location. Alcé says, sorry, were you waiting long? Alcé says, I wanted to make sure I'd borrowed at least a few promising volumes. Alphino and Kryl should be along shortly. Graha says, I was delayed in similar fashion, as far as I could see. No titles in the Archon stacks mention the final day specifically, so we had no choice but to start with the tangentially relevant tomes, if they're even that. At present, the plan is to skim through as quickly as we dare and to share our discoveries as we make them. Elsie says, it would have been nice to invite everyone to the estate, plenty of comfortable places to read, and a ready supply of hot tea. Graha says, oh, I was always quite fond of reading outside. But it's not about the little pleasures, is it? You miss your home. Elsie says, it's been difficult. After our arrival, we managed to speak with one of the family servants and ask how things were. It seems our dear father has instructed the staff that even if Alphino and I were to return to Sharlayan, we were not to be allowed across the threshold. Graha says, a harsh measure indeed. I hope that our efforts to understand his position and that of the Forum will perhaps lead to a reconciliation. Atlas A says, we'll mend that rift one day, I'm certain of it. And what of you, Graha? Have you been to visit your family, or do they not live here in the city? Graha says, well, my situation is somewhat complicated. I was raised in Sharlayan, yes, but I was born rather further away. In the southern reaches of Isilbard, in fact. For generations, my people have dwelt in Corvos, the coastal region opposite the Isle of Thavnir. The Elegans founded a city in that fertile land, and by ship brought in the subjugate tribes of the Makote to serve as laborers. Of course, the massive earthquakes of the Fourth Umbral Calamity brought an end to the Empire's reign, and when the Fifth Calamity froze the seas solid, many of the tribes still living in Corvos braved the journey back to Eorzea. My ancestors, however, chose to remain, that they might prevent the remnants of Elegan technology from being misused. Oh no, Gleep! Alise says, isn't Corvos under Garlean rule? Graha says, for the past 50 years, yes. Some semblance of local culture remains, as is the case for most imperial provinces, but Garlemald renamed the region Locus Amionis. When I was a boy, a nearby town came under the jurisdiction of an illustrious imperial family, the nobles of House Darnus. House Darnus demonstrated a singular interest in Allegan civilization, and so my tribe was forced to consider a plan of action. For some time already, voices have been raised in favor of abandoning our ancient customs. After all, the Allegan Eye no longer passed to our eldest children as reliably as it once had. Fear of discovery eventually tipped the scales, and the decision was made to bury our ties to the knowledge and traditions of Alec. As the last child born with the Allegan Eye, I was given over to the custody of friends in the students of Baldacian, who had me registered as a Sharlayan citizen. Alce says, I never even considered. Forgive me. It was an unkind question. Graha says, even Thancred was taken in by Archon. Even Thancred was taken in by Archon Louisois, was he not? Stories of adopted waifs and rescued orphans are more common amongst Sharlayans than you might think. Yet, regardless of our origins, we are all provided with an equal opportunity to learn, and with sufficient specificity, I cannot say that word, we outsiders can even earn the vaunted title of Archon. 'Tis exactly why I have such love for this country, and why I wished it to remain a nation of which its citizens can be proud. Alce says, hear, hear. Another good reason to get to the bottom of the Forum's stubbornness, aside from the trifling matter of our impending doom. Elsie says, excuse me while we try to make some headway into these books, Lithingel. More companies should be arriving any moment now. I really hope we go to this Corvos. I really do. Alphino says we've returned with our selections. Although I must say the pickings were quite slim indeed. Mistress Kryl has already flicked through every history book devoted to disasters, and more than a few which barely made mention of them. As such, we will be looking into research papers on the umbral calamities, as well as articles written by prominent forum members. Perhaps their knowledge of the final days comes from an unexpected source. Kryl says, speaking of which, might I ask you a few questions related to the final days? I'm the only one here who didn't witness the events in Amarat firsthand, and fear I may be overlooking critical details. Kryl says, my thanks. Now, where to begin? Kryl says, first things first, what kind of phenomena did the ancients encounter as the final days drew nigh? What'll I say? A complete destabilization of creation magics. Primals with unrivaled power were summoned from the aether. Worst kind of phenomena you can imagine. Complete destabilization. Alphino says, yes, the unfolding catastrophe wrought havoc on all manner of life. The chaos extended to the ancients themselves, causing their powers of creation to spiral out of control. Fear and despair manifested in terrible, tangible fashion. Meteors raining from the sky, fire erupting from the ground, indescribable abominations prowling the streets. Kryl says, that more or less aligns with my understanding. If only the arts of creation had survived until the present day, we might have had something substantial to analyze. To the best of our knowledge, however, those techniques were not preserved or passed on. Y'shtola surmises that the closest known magic is that of the summoning rituals promulgated by the Ascians. Was there aught else of note which heralded the approach of the final days? The entire star was engulfed by disaster all at once. They say it began with a keening sound from the land itself. Or Alphino, you can answer that one. Keening sound. Alphino says, ah yes, the Amaranthines spoke of it, didn't they? We never did hear this sound ourselves, of course, thrust as we were in the midst of the madness. But it seems that each and every one of the catastrophes was preceded by this ominous noise. Eventually, it resounded all across the star, and not even Amarat was spared. Kryl says, so the ground was crying out, you say. To be considered the harbinger of doom, it must have been quite distinctive, and probably quite loud. I'll have to speak with one of the Newman's Mammoths and ask after any books which make mention of such a sound. Kryl says, last but not least, would you describe the ancients, or how the ancients sought to quell this unprecedented calamity? What definitive action did they take? They summoned Zodiark. Alphino says, yes, with Elidibus serving as his heart. So many gave themselves in sacrifice to bring him into being. We do not know exactly how Zodiark brought salvation to the star, only that his godlike will were the laws of nature set aright. Then, once the balance was redressed, the ancients offered up a further sacrifice to heal the ravages of the final days. Lives sprouted anew, and it was these fledgling souls they intended to render unto Zodiark a trade that would have allowed them to resurrect the shades of loved ones absorbed by the primal. Or might have, had Vana and her fellows not manifested their opposition in the form of Hydaelyn. Kral says, "Thank you, both of you, for the detailed review. I feel much more confident now in my understanding of events. With all that freshly in mind, it does make me wonder what the Telophori truly mean when they speak of bringing back the final days. We've seen what they're doing with these towers of theirs. Is forcing people to summon primals a kind of catalyst? Are they attempting to mirror the conditions caused by the unstable creation magics? Or are they simply using the final days as a figure of speech, a convenient metaphor for the scale of destruction they plan to unleash?" But this is all just pointless conjecture at this stage. Let us return our attention to the forum, shall we? Alphanos says we should keep an eye out for Y'shtola, but 'tis time we began studying these research papers. Alright, we'll wait here again. Y'shtola says, "I'm here. I'm the last, am I? Well, my extended research of the Archon stacks produced one or two possibly useful books. But I wouldn't get your hopes up. If you recall, Urianger learned of the source's reflections from the Grun oracles. For its potential to cause panic and confusion, that tome was deemed apocryphal and sealed away in the Great Grubel Library. It is even less likely that knowledge of the unsundered world, not to mention the horrors of the final days, would be left sitting on a shelf for any curious scholar to find. It stands to reason, then, that my colleagues, be they archons or counselors, should perforce be largely ignorant of the subject. Yet, when you confronted Master Fortuno with knowledge of the Telophori and their mechanisms, he scoffed at the suggestion that they posed a threat. He seemed adamant that the Forum would know if the final days were truly upon us. Which only supports the conclusion that whatever privileged wisdom is guiding the Forum's behavior, it is being kept secret from the rest of the nation. Not that I mean to excuse myself from reading duty. Whether they contain mention of the final days or no, these books could yet hold something of value. You weren't thinking of leaving, were you? There's plenty of work for everyone. You labor for what feels like an age as Y'shtola's research assistant. Alright, time to talk to Kral. Kral says, "Oh dear, you look exhausted, but what about your studies? Were you able to find any books on the subjects I mentioned?" "Then the day was well spent. Should you wish to read them again, ma'am, at the reference desk will point you in the right direction. For the moment, though, I suggest you take a well-deserved rest. We might be occupied with our research for quite some time." And Alisei? Alisei appears in desperate need of a study break. Alisei says, "Ready for a tea break? I know I am." Honestly, my neck and shoulders are going to calcify if I don't stretch my legs and walk around for a bit. You know the last stand down in the harbor, don't you? Come and meet me near the outside tables. I'll treat you to their coffee. It's quite good. Alright, back down to the last stand. Wait a minute, did I attune up here? Well, I'll go do it now. There she is. LSA says, as busy as ever, I see. How very Charlayan that no other gourmet cafe has sprung up to compete for customers. Actually, this crowd gives me an idea. Before we place an order, why don't we ask a few questions and gauge the mood of the city? I'm interested to hear what the average citizen has to say about the Talafari. We might even learn something new. Worth a try, don't you think? Alright, keep her at my side and proceed with the objectives, blah blah blah. Oh, this person says, what is it? Can a man not enjoy a moment of private respite? If you're looking to share a table, then I respectfully request you look elsewhere. You misunderstand, sir, LSA says. We were simply wondering if you knew of the Talafari. These enemies of peace that promise to end all that we hold dear and... Curondier says, wait. You're that House Levier girl, aren't you? And this woman with you is obviously a foreigner. I've heard you were disowned for helping outsiders indulge their barbaric whims, and here you are giving truth to the rumor. I'll thank you to leave me be. I've naught to say to the likes of you. Elsie says, well, I must apologize. 'Twas foolish of me to expect an ounce of civility from one so enlightened. Come. Alright, well, next spot. Talk to this Hildoys. Yes, I don't believe I've had the pleasure. Pray, Alcé says, pray excuse this interruption, but we were hoping you might share your thoughts on the Talafari and their unconscionable plans. My goodness, if it isn't the young Miss Levier. My apologies, but I work in the offices of the Forum, and if word reached Master Fortunote that I was helping you... Elsie says, I see. We're sorry to have bothered you. Alright, let's talk to Dickon. Welcome, madam. What might I offer you today? Wait, is that Mistress Alisay? I see there. My word. How long has it been? Alisay says, far too long. Alisay says, meet Dickon, the owner of the Last Stand. I used to frequent its cafe on occasion, in between lessons at the studium. Dickon says, that seems like an age ago now. I remember hearing that you and Master Alphino had set sail for Eorzea, but then you never came back. Lately, there's been gossip about your father disowning the pair of you. Everything all right at home? Elsie says it's complicated, and I hadn't expected complete strangers to be so familiar with our situation quite so quickly. Everyone has an opinion, it seems. Dickon says, well, it is House Levier. No matter how discreet Master Fortuno may have been, news of your family's doings never stay secret for long. Things being what they are, what brings you back to the city now of all times? Elsie says, we have questions and only Charlayan has the answers. Tell me, Master Dickon, have you heard anything about an apocalypse called the Final Days? Dickon says, what, like the end of the world? Nothing like that, I'm afraid, but that's what you're here to find? Information on this apocalypse? Yes, Elsie says, whatever we can learn. Unfortunately, your patrons appear to be unwilling to speak with me. Dickon says, I wish there was more that I could do to help. Dickon says, but maybe there is. You're a visitor to Charlayan, aren't you? Dickon says, then few will know your face. We should be able to pass you off as a server with none the wiser. We just finished preparing a few orders. Strike up some friendly conversation while you're setting down the food, and you might just get some answers that you're looking for. Elsie says, not a bad idea. I hate to ask, but what do you think? Leave it to me. Dickon says, that's the spirit. Pay attention now, and I'll explain where each of these dishes needs to go. Tea sets for the chatty group sitting at the water's edge. Omelets for one of our regulars, a Highlander by the name of Giselle. She's sitting at the outside table with a friend of hers. And behind them, you should find a Makote gentleman. He ordered the oven-baked lobster. Got all that? If you're not sure, just ask and I'll explain again. Good luck. All right. Chatty table. Tea. Oh, my tea set. Lovely, thank you. Hermanjart says, the Tlafaru? I'm sorry, I've never heard of them or their final days. My friends and I are somewhat uninformed when it comes to current events. Now, if you wanted to hear about ritual arcane practices of the 6th Astral Era, common or esoteric, then I'd be happy to talk your ear off. Alright, Gisala gets the omelet. Ah, finally. 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's dig in. No time to waste. What? The Tlophoroi? Ah, yes. I remember seeing the name in the latest Gazette. That and some grand claim about the end of days. Same old senseless warmongering. When all these fools grow tired of spilling each other's blood. Or when will they? Best stay out of it, I say. The Forum made the right choice, and I fully support our decision to remain neutral. Alright, and this fella gets the lobster. Smitutia, at last the oven-baked lobster is mine. You have no idea how long I've scrimped and saved and suffered to afford this heavenly dish. The final days? This is the first I've heard of it. Although that would explain why my friend has been rushed off his feet. It must be busy time for a gleaner. You don't know what a gleaner is? They're collectors of a sort. Travel the world procuring things that we haven't got here on Sharlayan. Priceless books, unusual life specimens, and so forth. So named for those folks who trail after the reapers in the fields, picking up every grain that was missed. Aye, by all accounts, gleaning is a most meticulous and demanding profession. If these Telophoroi make good on their audacious threats, then many uncatalogued rarities could be lost forever. Why else would the gleaners be buzzing about in such a frenzy? Watch the harbor and you'll see what I mean. They're carting loads in from docks all day. It's never been this hectic before. Not like this. Okay. Let's go back to LSA. LSA says, any trouble with the customers? Were you able to get anyone talking? LSA says, interesting. They seem unaware of the final days, aside from whatever vague news the gazettes are printing. Even Dickon had nothing to offer, and he's the best source of gossip in the city. If the Forum does have secret knowledge, then they've done an impressive job of ensuring no one whispers it in the wrong ear. In any case, thank you for playing the part so well. Here, that cup of coffee I promised. But let's enjoy our drinks somewhere else, shall we? Maybe behind the peristyle, away from the gossips and their wagging tongues. Alright, let's go find where she went. There she is. Elsa says, yes, this should do nicely. Out of the wind, out of sight. Sure looks like a Starbucks
When our
cup.
father disowned us, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't until much later that his words began to sink in, that I began to feel the weight of what it meant. Do you remember when the decision was made to come to Sharlayan? Graham said that the Forum was determined to keep us in the dark, and that Father's venomous performance was part of that strategy, to keep us at arm's length. Perhaps it was. Father argued with Grandfather on many occasions, but never with such dismissive contempt. And when he demanded what justifies the sacrifices we make in war, I honestly didn't know what to say. Neither did Alpha know, I know, but never for one moment did I believe we had made the wrong choice. So all I could do was fume silently. It was only afterwards that I realized how childish I had been, how being stubborn and self-righteous must run in the family. If I could have just mustered a civil response, then things might have turned out differently. They must be ferrying goods to Labyrinthos. A vast complex beneath the island. Sharlayan is famous for archiving knowledge from around the world. Well, that knowledge is not preserved exclusively in dusty tomes and desiccated samples. Our living library, comprised of all manner of flora and fauna, is housed and studied within that underground facility. Still, that did seem to be an unusually large shipment. When I lived here, it was rare to even see such cargo transported by boat. Wait! Didn't you hear something in the last stand about the gleaners coming and going more than usual? Well, I think they're the ones we saw manning those boats. And gleaners answer to the Forum. If the appearance of the Telophoroi prompted this sudden burst of activity, then Labyrinthos may hold a clue as to what the Forum is planning.
Curiouser and curiouser. Alisei is excited to share your revelations. We should tell the others what we've learned about the Gleaners. Go on ahead to Noman. I'll join you there in a moment. Master Dickon will want his cups back. Alright, gotta go talk to Kryle. So we're gonna sprint on over there and talk to the potato. Kryle says, "Welcome back. Been for a walk and cleared your head, have you?" Alisei says, "Not exactly. We did some impromptu investigating and turned up information on the Gleaners." Ishtala says, "It makes sense. The Gleaners take their requests directly from the institutions and bureaucrats, but as you say, they ultimately answer to the Forum. A sudden and significant increase in Gleaner traffic and in cargo, it certainly gives the impression of an overarching plan being put into motion." Alphino says, "Let us see what theory we can build from the facts." As Justola observed earlier, Noman's archives appear to contain no information concerning the final days. Coupled with what Lithangal and Alisei learned at the last stand, we can be reasonably sure that most Shirlayans know nothing of that particular period of ancient history. Yet my father and his colleagues are not only familiar with the final days, but are also somehow certain that the destruction being perpetuated by the Telophoroi is wholly unlike these apocalyptic events. Moreover, the Forum claims to be so occupied by a duty of such pressing importance that they saw fit to unanimously deny Yorz's request for aid. And now the Gleaners, official agents of the state, have been mobilized on an unprecedented scale. Kryle says, "I do not think it a stretch to conclude that the Gleaners' recent activities are in service to the Forum's secretive ends." Kryle says, "In which case, our next course of action seems obvious. We visit Labyrinthos and assess the situation for ourselves. And, if we're lucky, the Gleaners will be far more receptive to our questions." What'll I say? Fine idea. What should we expect down there? Anything would be better than burying my head in another dusty book. What should we expect? Krell says, oh, I would hate to spoil the surprise. Graha says, as for myself, there are a few more subjects I would like to research. I may join you later, but feel free to leave behind your borrowed books and be on your way. I'll see that each is returned to its proper place. Krell says, that would be a great help. Thank you, Raha. LSA says, let's head down the stairs over there and I'll show you where the entrance is. And there's LSA. Ready? Labyrinthos is not too far from here, but you may find the path a bit disorienting. I'll take the lead, so stay close. Alright, follow LSA, try not to fall behind. Alright, well, let's go. Oh, she's gonna walk. Pleasant here among the trees, but we really should move along. Now we run. Try to keep up. Okay. Keep to the path straight ahead. We cross this bridge. Up here. The Rasta, not far now. Here we are, through this door and down the stairs. You did remember to attune the shard back there, didn't you? It'll make your life much easier if we need to come back in a hurry. Otherwise, we should keep moving. I'm pretty sure I attuned to it, but I'm gonna run back and make sure. Yeah, I already attuned to it. Chocobo Keep. Alright, let's talk to Kryle. Kryle says, well, we're all here now, yes? I've taken the liberty of securing permission for our group's descent. Right, everyone onto the lift and down we go.
Deep beneath the scholar's city shines a false sun within a fabricated sky. In any age exist those who consider the floor an extension of their bookshelves, and this vault's architects surely belonged to that special breed. If the stack grows too high, start a new one. If no room remains, then make more rooms. A simple solution at first, and then bit by bit, a profound transformation. Knowledge, buried beneath knowledge, a growing, creeping labyrinth from which there is no escape.
Not what you expected. I must admit, the artifice is very convincing. But I assure you that we are beneath Sharlayan itself. The breeze you feel, the flowing waters you hear, all created by the hand of man.
The island is volcanic, you see, and once upon a time this great hollow must have been a reservoir for magma. It was discovered some 400 years ago, at which point it was repurposed as a storage facility for scrolls and samples and such. Renovations have continued, with nigh on no interruption to this day, with the lower levels still undergoing expansion.
Aren't those people gleaners?
Aye, judging by their dress. They are said to work alone as a rule, but 'twould seem that rule is being enthusiastically broken today. It may be as you suspected, that they are engaged in a task apart from the norm.
Let's spread out and get some answers then.
Ugh. Did you call to me just now? No. How odd. I must be a bit dizzy from the descent. I'll be fine, I'm sure. Let's get to work, shall we?
Alright, Doman says, you want to know what I'm doing? Hauling books and ore and fauna. If it needs hauling, I haul it. Every decade or so, they take stock in Labyrinthos, you know, sort of tidying up the inventory. Never seen an operation like this before, though. They just did one a few summers ago, even. Then, with no warning at all, this mess gets dropped in our laps. Orders from on high, damned if I know the reason. Could be that they're changing the layout, eh? Preparing for the next big expansion. Steve says, let me think. The Rhea seeds should be item 1058, Cumin seeds 1059, Snurble 1060, or were they 1061? Arg, my head feels like it's stuffed with Moko grass. Why more loads to take out than carry in? Why do all this at once and risk mixing it up? What if someone mistakes the Corinthian carrots for the Garabanian carrots? What then? Aaronville says, you here to help or give me more headaches? Because if you don't, because you don't have the look of a gleaner, and I'm in no mood for idle chatter. One of my colleagues was so exhausted he took a tumble and crashed into a pile of crates. Now I have to pack a mammoth. I have a pack of mammoths running loose. Okay. Let's go talk to Kyle again. Kyle says, any luck? What tales did the gleaners have to tell? Hand over my notes. Krell says, so this grand operation began without warning, and for every item they bring in, they're sending even more inventory somewhere else. That would explain the haggard faces I've been seeing. We were right. The Forum is definitely up to something, and they're turning Labyrinthos upside down in the process. Krell appears lost in thought. We would do well to learn more of what specifically the Gleaners are being tasked to do, as well as who has tasked them to do it. If you're game, I have an idea. Didn't one of the Gleaners you questioned say something about escaped marmots? Perhaps if you help him call Apture said creatures, he might be inclined towards a more friendly and enlightening conversation. In the meantime, I'll turn my charms upon this Gleaner here. We can compare notes afterwards. Happy hunting. Oh, am I gonna get to do something? Alright. You wish to help me find the marmots. I have nothing suitable to pay you for your services, but if you're offering out of the goodness of your heart, I'd welcome the assistance. Name's Aaronville, friend, specialist in the collection of live specimens. That said, the capture of these Negaxian marmots is a trial I've no desire to repeat. Grizzled mice, they call them. For a mercy, there is no other marmot species on this tier at present, so there should be no mistaking our little fugitives. If you happen to catch any, stuff them in this sack. Gently, of course. Where to begin, you wonder? I've not seen any scampering about here, so we need to widen our search into the surrounding forest. Be on your guard. There are beasts out there that won't hesitate to prey on a marmot. Or you. I'll search the trees to the west. The eastern part of the forest is all yours. Good luck. Alright. Better get my chocobo out. Now let's pick a suitable mount. My fatter cat. Oh, big boy troll. A grizzled mouse. Coyote. Chirp squeak. Oh, it got away. Ooh, an aether current. Let's grab that. I'm outside the quest area now. Down here. Here's a little purple patch. A hunting troll. Okay. Let's try that again. Squeak. The rodent nimbly evades your grasp before once more disappearing into the trees. Okay. Go back up the hill. There we go, there's the little mouse. Squeak, squeak. I managed to get him. Alright, deliver him back to Erenfell. How did you fare? Track down 3 of the pack, which leaves 1 unaccounted for. I've got the Squirming Rat Pack. There we go. Ah, there's the odd marmot out. Marmot out. Alright. Wait here a moment while I put our friends in a holding cage. Thankfully, the marmots seem to be unharmed. They've held up well in isolation, but it's much too soon to release them into the habitat. It's a good thing we were able to recapture them so swiftly. You have my thanks. What'll I say? Who tasked you with capturing them in the first place? What'll I do? What will you do with them now? What will you do with them now? That's for the Forum to decide. They are the guiding authority behind Labyrinthos after all, and this job was but one small part of this great inventory of theirs. Suitable for consumption and easy to breed, those were the two conditions I was given for the stock I was instructed to procure. I don't know what the Forum has planned for these creatures, but at the very least, I doubt they'll be served for dinner today or tomorrow. Alisei says, "There you are!" Prowl says, "Is this the gleaner you mentioned, the one who was looking for lost marmots?" Aaronville says, "Interesting company you keep, friend. Who are you folk, anyway?" Prowl says, "I'm Kryl of the Students of Baldacian. These others are my associates." Truth be told, the Forum's decisions of late have not sat entirely well with us. That is why we made the descent into Labyrinthos. We hoped that by seeing those decisions put into action, we might more fully understand their reasoning. Wise and practical, Aaronville says. Never hurts to try and gain a broader perspective, does it? Anyway, duty calls. Other animals to capture and enclosures to empty. Once again, I'm sorry that I can't offer you more for your services. Kryl says, "Did you learn anything new from your friend there?" Kryl says, "So we've confirmed that the order for this ambitious operation did indeed come directly from the Forum. However, the Gleaners have not been informed of its purpose." Kryl says, "I'd say that fits with everything we've heard thus far." Alphino says, "We also discovered that when the operation was begun, the Forum contacted the Gleaners Guild ship and put their people to this great work some 4 days after the Telophoroi made their chilling declaration. As seasoned travelers, the Gleaners kept abreast of news from every corner of the world out of necessity. Thus, am I inclined to trust that their calendar of events is accurate." Y'shtala says, "Altogether, it gives a distinct impression that this undertaking was a sudden and unexpected development. Yet I find it hard to believe that such a comprehensive restructuring of Labyrinthos and its archives could have been planned in so brief a window. Nay, this plan was long in the making. They were but awaiting the right time to put it into effect." Alisei says, "And the Telophorai's declaration was what set it all in motion?" Y'shtala says, "It seems likely. But let us not leap to conclusions just yet." Y'shtala says, "For the moment, I suggest we conduct a wider investigation of Labyrinthos. The more facilities we visit, the more pieces of the puzzle we stand to find." Ryl says, "In that case, how about we head for the Archeon? From there, we can reach the lower..." Elsie says, Corral, what's wrong? Corral says, I'm fine, truly. The sudden descent has left me with a bit of a headache, that's all. Nothing that'll stop me from soldiering on. Let's be about it then. Alphino says, at least allow me to take the lead. I'm fairly certain I remember the way to the Archeon. Yeah. Alphino says, we follow the path east through the forest where you were chasing after the mouse, or marmot, was it? Anyway, 'tis the trolls you need to watch out for. Okay. Off we go. Let's find Alphino. Alright, after I finish this quest and attune that aetheryte, I am going to take a break for a little while. And I will start up another stream later today. So first, we'll talk to Alphino. Alphino says, behold the Archeon. As Nomen serves as Charlayan's literary archive, so does this structure house the city's wealth of material data. The architecture, too, is similar. This building, you see, is merely the upper entrance, an access point to the vaults carved into the cliffside itself. Within those vast rooms are stored countless samples and specimens, as well as the detailed records which describe them. In a manner of speaking, the Archeon contains a physical history of Charlayan's unwavering dedication to the accumulation of knowledge. Yep, that's exactly the plan, Gleep. Alright. So, Alphino is right here. And we'll come back to him when I get back from my break. Attune to this. We're going to stay within the borders here to where it's got the little moon coming up on my bar down here, so I get the extra rested XP. And yeah. I will see you guys hopefully later today. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll bid you adieu now. Alright. Bye for now.